When we sit down, it's time for the conversation. And today I am joined by two guests to put into context the Kenyan Constitution. Promulgated on the 27th of August 2010, it marks 10 years since that constitution came into life in this country. A lot of conversation has been going on. How are we tracking with regards to implementation? Have we even implemented that constitution to the fullest? What are some of the challenges? What are some of the things that we've gotten right? And judging from the president's national address, what are some of the things that we need to amend in that constitution? Joining us to put these matters into perspective, Charles Kanjama. He is a lawyer and a managing partner at Moma and Kanjama Advocates. He is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. He's the secretary of the Strathmore Educational Trust and lectures at the school rather. He's a member of the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Kenya, the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, and the Institute of Certified Public Secretaries. Kanjama holds a bachelor's degree in law from the University of Nairobi and a postgraduate diploma in law from the Kenya School of Law. He holds a master's degree in law at the University of Nairobi and enrolled at the Strathmore University for a master's degree in business administration. Our second guest is Daniel Orogo. He's currently programs director Center for Community Law at Uwazi Consortium. He's a fellow in International Institute for African Scholars at Emmanuel University, United States of America. He is a graduate Bachelor of Arts from the University of Nairobi, Political Science and Sociology. He is a former aspirant Kibra Member of Parliament election by the Jubilee Party of Kenya. And among many other things, he's also a consultant with regards to political governance, peace, human rights, and a discussant. Thank you for making time. Daniel, let me begin with you. 10 years later, what were some of the expectations? Take us back. What are some of the expectations that Kenya had in 2010 when we promulgated the new constitution?
Well, thanks for the interview. And again, I would congratulate Kenyans for the 10th anniversary of the constitution 10 years down the line. Mm-hmm. I think we are coming at a platform of, mixed reaction of, success, of a lot of challenges, and as well as, good stories from the constitution, the triumph that, we've had ever since the promulgation of the constitution. But let me just take you back to what you really asked. Many Kenyans might not really be aware. People are asking, what is the need of celebrating 10 years down the line? Are we really proud to be Kenyans? Ama tunavumilia kwa Kenya, But let me take you back that for us who saw the midwifing of the constitution, those who lived by the dark ages, of the regime that was very insensitive of, creation of democratic space. You wonder that we had a government that was, had what we call micromanaging, did not respect the rule of law. The era of the government where nobody would democratically rise to challenge the violation of human rights. We had a purely, supreme and executive and very powerful president would not tolerate different views. And all these things, and, the fight and the clamor. I think when we saw the promulgation of the constitution, in August of 2010, the expectation, one, is that we are going to increase the democratic space as opposed to the previously where we had the massive infringement of human rights and individual rights. We had the expectation of a constitution that has expanded the chapter on human rights. A very, very big chapter on human rights, that is chapter 4. In the, the Bill of Rights is one of the greatest, yardstick that we measure the achievement of this constitution. We also expectant of the extreme and the rights, rather the separation of powers within the three arms of the government. Like I've said previously in the last constitution, the executive took control of the judiciary, took control of the legislature. But the incoming of the constitution, the promulgation of the new constitution, the expectation was that here we are going to see, the independence of the other arms of government without being interfered with. And also, like I've said, the issues of human rights, the political rights that have been expanded, and even the devolved system of government, by the way. And I think the chapter 11 is one of the celebrated chapters that we are having, the 47 system of devolved government. Remember, these were before, but again, if you look at it keenly, we had a decentralized form of government in terms of the provinces, which of course were managed by the provincial administration, but were only accountable, to the president and not to the citizens. So I think these were some of the greatest expectations that citizens had when, the constitution was uplifted in Uhuru Park and it was now midwifed and given birth to. Right?
Okay. Yeah. Great. Now, you've done a good job putting into context what our expectations were 10 years ago. Kanjama, I want to find out from you, 10 years later, how would you say the scorecard looks like with regards to implementing the constitution and the expectations that Kenya had 10 years ago?
Looking at it now, 10 years down the line, it's been a mixed bag, to be honest. There are certain things where there has been progress. Devolution has brought infrastructure and resources to the people. Hospitals are being built. They are being filled with the resources, the medicines, the staff are coming in the counties. So some of the things that have happened have been fantastic, but we've also seen devolution of corruption. A lot of funds being wasted at the devolved level of government. At the national government, we have many more institutions. That means the size of government has grown. There's much more recurrent expenditure. And there's been a concern that capital expenditure is not growing fast enough. There's still a lot of loss of government resources. So looking back 10 years down the line, would give the constitution implementation a passing grade, but it will not be very high. It will be somewhere between 50 and 60%.
Very interesting, Kanjama. This constitution was hailed as the perfect document, yet you give it a pass. What would you say are some of the setbacks, maybe two, that are holding us back from fully implementing this constitution?
A lack of integrity, that is, in our leaders and also in us as ordinary citizens. And the second one, tribalism or negative ethnicity. Of course, ethnicity and ethnic diversity is a positive thing. But when we separate from other people, or we make choices purely on the basis of ethnicity in the public sphere, that is a problem. So I think these are two issues that have been holding us back, and they summarize all the problems we've been having. Then, of course, we have the normal tough wars or ego fights between people in different arms of government, different organs of government. We have a ballooning public wage bill, resources that are not getting into capital development. We still have a big deficit in terms of building our infrastructure so that you can have a positive multiplier effect on our economic activities. And then I think in the area of implementation of the laws, the government is still stingy with certain organs of government like the judiciary in matters to do with budget. And so we find that part of the transformation that is based on constitutionalism and the rule of law is going too slow. In Parliament, you're noticing the battles between the Senate and the National Assembly have never been resolved. Those are tough wars. In the executive, some of the structures that we thought would be put in place, for example, to transform policing, have been diverted a bit, because now the Director of Criminal Investigation does not report most of the time to the Inspector General of Police. They have a direct reporting line above. Then you find the National Police Service Commission, part of the role it had before, has been diminished. So we still have authority that is mainly personal to the Inspector General of Police. The administration police still needs to be transformed. So there have been these challenges. And then, of course, devolution fights. they seem to be never ending. And those who are experts in devolution say that we are probably less than 50% of where we ought to be in the struggle to have counties that are effective and are delivering resources and results to Kenyans at the grassroots.
Orogo, I want to bring you in. Kanjama has mentioned a very pertinent point that we are seeing ego wars and tariffs being drawn between the legislature and the judiciary versus the executive, and this plays a huge role in the implementation of the constitution. Recently, when the Chief Justice was being interviewed, he accused politicians of cherry picking facets of the constitution or elements of the constitutions to implement which served their interest or were less contentious. What do you think about this?
Well, I think Kanjama is rightfully placed. I mean, I would agree with him on a number of issues that he mentioned, but of course, really also begin to take a detour. Like I've said and given, the route, the process that we've taken to have this constitution. I mean, first of all, I appreciate that we have a better way constitution, like, as compared to the one that we have, where there is at least some checks on the balances, between these arms of the government. Like I said, for me, I think if I was to rate the performance of all these institutions, the three arms of government in terms of playing their role, that of accountability, that of drafting of policy and making laws, well, I would put them, I also give them a pass. I mean, six out of 10, because, it's not been easy. Because remember, the 2013, the government of Jubilee is the first government that was coming into place and was implementing the constitution by that time. And you remember what this government was. They are coming in at a time when they are fighting cases at the ICC. They're coming in at a time where there's question about their legitimacy. And also as a time when Kenyans are also expecting them to implement the constitution, both in the spirit and the letter. So I think the performance of the government in 2013, insofar as opening, making sure that there is a smooth transition from the old constitution to the new one, has to be appreciated. But here comes the catch now, where recently we've seen the executive trying to untwist the legislature. Okay. Even in terms of, passing the division of revenue bill. These are things that we really have to mention. We've seen a situation where the head of executive have clearly stated that, we are revisiting the judiciary, like after the case of, the Supreme case of 2017. And so any effort by the executive to try to meddle into the affairs of the judiciary is seen as a way of revisiting. Remember, we are having judges that have not really been, appointed by the president. And the question is, the 14 judges, is it a question of, trying to muzzle the judiciary or trying to expedite the accountability of the judges that were, that were proposed? So these are matters to be put in perspective. Another thing, I'm sorry for taking. Remember.
Seems like I've lost you there, Orogo.
We're having in offices, independents that are in the constitution, right?
Orogo, looks like I have lost you there.
I can hear you.
Okay, please finish on your point.
What I'm saying is that once we begin to respect the, the independent offices that are stated within this constitution, because when we begin to mutilate offices like the Independence IBC, offices like the Public Service Commission, these are Commission of Revenue Allocation. The moment we begin to pull strings into the performance and the functions of this institution, then I think we are not respecting that they are quasi-judicial. the moment that we begin even to interfere with the commission, the committees that are within the legislature, then we are saying, we are not really up in terms of the implementation of this constitution. So I agree that certain percentage of it has been implemented, and like Maraga said, there's cherry picking. What really suits certain sections of the judiciary or certain section of the executive or certain section of the legislature, that is what we pick. But then we forget the bigger picture, that constitution is representing the will of the people, is the supremacy of the people in itself.
Okay, now I want to move on and go back to Kanjama, because the constitution has different elements in it, and you mentioned devolution in passing. Kanjama, I want to find out from you, 7 years of implementation of devolution from 2013 to date. Have we the people achieved and get to enjoy the fruits of devolution?
We are further than we've ever been as an independent country. And in a few years' time, we'll be celebrating our 60th anniversary of independence. And we've never been this far, because we remember the first attempt at devolved government or federal government through Majimboism was a stillbirth. It did not come to fruition within 1 or 2 years. So now we've had an experience of 7 years of devolved government. The health sector, after a lot of crisis, is finally beginning to fall into shape, and they've accepted the devolved structures. The resources going to the county governments are improving. So definitely there's growth. We have seen towns, headquarters of various counties growing to a level where we did not believe just a few years ago that we would see. But we still have a number of concerns. Many governors spend a big chunk of their time in Nairobi. They don't spend most of their time in their counties, some of the governors. So Nairobi is still sucking in so much of the resources of this country. Even what is devolved to the counties, part of it, again, is ending up in Nairobi.
I like the fact that in passing, you've mentioned some of the challenges that are facing devolution, one of them being that we haven't found a way of ensuring the devolution really works for us, and the leadership hasn't quite struck a balance between staying in Nairobi and serving the interests of their counties. However, another big challenge is the challenge of revenue. 9 sittings later, the Senate is yet to agree on a formula that will be used to divide 316.5 billion among the 47 counties. What's the way forward with regards to revenue allocation and revenue division between counties and the national government for devolution to fully work for the people? Kanjama?
The Commission on Revenue Allocation, which comes up with the formula, needs to introduce more clarity into the formula. The Equalization Fund, we need to see the fruits of the Equalization Fund. One of the reasons why the push and pull is coming now on the question of population versus area of the county is because even the large counties with small relative population have been receiving a lot of money, but we are yet to see commensurate fruits. And there's a perception that some of the money, a substantial amount of the money, is being lost. So the organs of accountability that are meant to ensure we reduce corruption, they were developed at the national level. The Commission, Control of Budget Commission, Revenue Allocation, Ethics Anti-Corruption Commission, they've not yet become strong enough in each of the counties to be able to monitor the use of county funds. Even the oversight institutions, the Senate is a stronger oversight institution of our county funds than the county assemblies themselves. And yet it is the county assemblies that are meant to be the first point of oversight for county revenue. So there's quite a bit that needs to be done to empower the institutions that are at the national level, now at the county level, so that the money that gets to the county is well used.
Speaking of money, Orogo, I want to find out from you. Devolution is one of the new elements that the new constitution introduced, and it has not been a cheap endeavor. It has been very costly, one might argue. And I want to find out from you, because even the budget has been on a rise since the promulgation of the new constitution. Right now we are at 3 trillion. The debt ceiling has been raised from 6 trillion to 9 trillion. Very briefly, would you say the new constitution has been a very expensive undertaking?
Definitely. I mean, it is, and I think this has proven in even the, and one of the problems I think as we were discussing before around 2010 was how is this going to be financed? That was the biggest debate by that time. And the fear that the creation of new offices, expansion of functions. Remember when the transition authority had hearings about what is the best mechanism to transit from the old to the new. The problem about the affairs, the problem about the financing of the constitution also took a role in the discussion. Mm-hmm. Remember, we are having 47 units. Remember, we are having, revenues that needs to be devolved, like Kanjama mentioned, to facilitate the expensive affairs of both, the county executive and the county assembly. And it doesn't only come at a cost, but if you delve down to the individual running of the affairs of these individual counties, and making sure that accountability part of it, it's quite expensive because mm-hmm. Then
you just mentioned accountability. Allow me to interject. Do you think also the constitution, now that it has broadened the areas with which revenue is leaving the national government, do you think it has also created avenues in which will help seal loopholes and hold those who loot public funds to account?
Yeah, that is what I was coming to, because when you see you broaden the reach, you broaden the the base for the functioning and the implementation of the base for operations of these counties, it definitely creates the gaps. And when Kanjama mentioned about the capacity building for members of county assembly to hold, try to provide oversight in the expenditure of this, it really points to a fact that between 7 years down the line, what has actually missed is how would we, create those systems to sever the proliferation of funds and make sure that they're utilized in the manner that is, it's provided for. But then you can also bear me witness that one of the functions, and I like the fact that you brought the issue about the division of revenue as one of the problems, that challenges that we are seeing right now. But the other problem that also comes with it is, when we created the 47 units, we also created the 47 pockets of looting public funds. We created empty pockets and bottomless pits where funds would be lost and nobody would really fast track the accountability part of it. So devolution created also the devolution. We are devolving even corruption towards 47 counties, which is a difficult affair to track on how those funds have been, have been used.
Orogo, I've really run out of time, and I want to find out from you. 10 years later, the president, during the Madaraka Day celebration, said he discerns a constitutional moment where we get to amend some of the things that we did not get right in 2010. But to this day, 10 years in office, or rather give or take 7 years in office, would you say that the leadership of this country has stood by the oath they took in 2013 and 2017 to uphold and protect the Constitution of Kenya? Very briefly, 30 seconds.
No, not really. I think what we have seen, let me say this for a fact, that we have seen a government that is not really committed to implementing of this Constitution. We have seen a government that, cherry pick the areas that are of interest to them and not really the entire Constitution. I think I would confidently say that the call for the amendment of the Constitution is not for the interests of Kenyans. This I confidently say, because when we are talking about expanding the executive, to fit in certain people, to avoid, in the spirit of accommodation, in the spirit of tolerance, and in the spirit of involving anyone, I think that is not right. Mm-hmm. The only way that Constitution provided for the amendment of the Constitution is on matters that affect Kenya. It is spelled out on the process. Article 256 and Article 250. This states very well how it really spelled. Then I would confidently tell you, and I would confidently look Kenyans in the eye and tell them that the changing of the constitution is not for Kenyans, but it's for the political elite who would want to expand their interest post, 7 years down the line, while Kenyans are languishing, at disillusionment, at employment, and at the state of seriously ramification at the expenses of certain few. It is not for their interest.
Okay, as we come to a close of the conversation, Kanjama, you have 30 seconds. During the presidential address or the national address that the president gave yesterday, in his finishing, he mentioned about constitutional amendment. To me, it is coming, whether we like it or not. Looks like it's one of his biggest agenda before he leaves office. If we are to review the constitution, what exactly should we review?
I think we have to review several things. We have to review the fruits or the products of this constitution. What are the fruits? Have we implemented? We have to review the process of implementation. How has it been? Have we moved faster than we should have? And we need to review our context, also taking into account benchmarking with neighboring countries, other countries in the world. I think at the end of the day, we can say it has been worth it, these 10 years, but we still have a long way to go.
There you go. Different opinions from different gentlemen, sharing them right here on Metropole Debrief. Daniel Orogo, thank you for making time. Charles Kanjama, thank you for making time. 24 minutes is never enough. That's why after the break, we continue this conversation on Social Watch. Join in on the conversation at Metropole TV, at Ondiro Ganga, and you'll have your say in the next few minutes. Don't go anywhere.